What if I told you that I spent months studying 100 self-made millionaires, their habits, their daily routines, their decisions, their mindset, and at the end of it all, I found something shocking. They were not smarter than everyone else. Most of them did not come from wealthy families. Many of them failed multiple times before succeeding. But every single one of them, all 100, shared a small set of common traits that the average person simply does not have. Today on Sunny Aurum, I am going to break down exactly what I found. The real patterns. The real traits. Not the fantasy version of millionaires you see in social media, but what actually makes self-made wealth possible. Stay until the end because the final trait is the one that almost nobody expects, and it might be the most important one of all. Welcome back to Sunny Aurum, where your money finally makes sense. If you are new here, we break down complex financial topics into simple, actionable steps anyone can follow. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a golden opportunity. Now let us dive into what I found. Before we get into the traits, let me explain exactly what this research involved. I studied 100 self-made millionaires, people who built their wealth from scratch, not inherited wealth. I looked at biographies, interviews, documented case studies, and publicly available financial research on self-made millionaires across different industries. Business owners, investors, real estate entrepreneurs, content creators, and professionals who built significant net worth through their careers and smart financial decisions. I was looking for patterns, things that showed up again and again across completely different people, different industries, different backgrounds, and different decades, and what I found was remarkably consistent. Despite coming from wildly different starting points, these 100 millionaires shared specific traits, habits, and decisions that appeared over and over again. This is not about luck. This is not about one single secret. This is about a combination of mindset, behavior, and consistent action repeated over years and decades. Let me show you exactly what I found, starting with the trait that surprised me the most. The very first trait that showed up across almost all 100 millionaires was this. They started before they felt ready. Every single one of them. We have this idea in our culture that successful people had it all figured out before they started. That they had the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect amount of money saved up, and the perfect level of confidence before they took action. The research showed the complete opposite. Almost every self-made millionaire I studied started their wealth-building journey with incomplete information, limited resources, and significant doubt about whether they would succeed. They started small businesses with no business degree. They made their first investment with very little understanding of the stock market. They took on their first big career risk without certainty about the outcome. What separated them was not preparation. It was action, despite imperfect preparation. They understood something that most people never internalize. You cannot think your way to clarity. You can only act your way to clarity. The plan becomes clear as you move forward, not before you start. The average person waits for the feeling of readiness before taking action, and that feeling almost never comes. Self-made millionaires took action with the confidence and clarity built along the way. This single trait, starting before feeling ready, might be the single biggest difference between people who build wealth and people who stay stuck dreaming about it. If you are waiting to feel ready before you start your side hustle, before you start investing, before you start that business idea, stop waiting. The readiness comes from doing, not before doing. The second trait that appeared consistently across these 100 millionaires was their relationship with financial knowledge. They did not see understanding money as optional information for accountants and bankers. They treated financial literacy as a core skill, as important as reading or basic math, and they dedicated real time and effort to mastering it. Nearly all of them could clearly explain concepts like compound interest, asset versus liability, tax-efficient investing, leverage, and cash flow, not because they studied finance in school, but because they made it a personal priority to learn these things on their own. Many of them mentioned specific books that changed how they thought about money. Many mentioned mentors who taught them financial principles early in their journey. Almost all of them described a period in their life where they consumed financial education aggressively. Books, courses, conversations with successful people, treating it like training for a sport they were determined to win. This stood in sharp contrast to the general population, where studies consistently show that most adults cannot correctly answer basic financial literacy questions about interest rates, inflation, and risk diversification. The gap between the financially educated and the financially uneducated is not small, it is massive, and it directly correlates with wealth outcomes. The lesson here is clear. If you want to build wealth, financial education cannot be an afterthought. It needs to become an active, ongoing pursuit. Read the books, watch the videos, ask questions. Understand how money actually works at a deep level, not just a surface level. This knowledge becomes the foundation for every smart decision you will ever make with your money. The third trait completely shattered the popular image of what a millionaire looks like. The vast majority of the 100 millionaires I studied lived significantly below their means, not just before they became wealthy, but even after. This goes against everything pop culture tells us about what wealthy people look like. We picture millionaires driving exotic cars, living in mansions, wearing designer clothes head to toe. But the research, and this is backed up by extensive studies including the famous book The Millionaire Next Door, shows something completely different. Most self-made millionaires drive normal, often older cars. They live in modest homes, frequently below what their income could afford. Why? Because they understood something fundamental about wealth that most people never grasp. Wealth is not what you spend. Wealth is what you keep and what you grow. Every dollar spent on a depreciating luxury item is a dollar that could have been invested and compounded into significantly more money over time. The millionaires in this study consistently chose to prioritize their investment portfolios and asset growth over visible displays of status. Many of them specifically mentioned a moment in their journey where they consciously decided to keep their lifestyle modest even as their income grew dramatically. This is one of the most practical and immediately actionable lessons from this entire study. You do not need to wait until you are wealthy to start living below your means. You can start today, regardless of your current income, and this single habit alone will accelerate your path to financial independence faster than almost anything else. The fourth trait was the level of specificity in their goal setting. This was not vague wishful thinking like I want to be successful. The millionaires I studied set extremely specific financial targets with clear deadlines attached. Many described setting goals like reaching a specific net worth by a specific age, achieving a specific monthly revenue target for their business by a specific quarter, or reaching a specific investment portfolio value by a certain year. These were not soft aspirational statements. They were precise targets that could be measured and tracked. And critically, these goals were not set once and forgotten. They were reviewed regularly. Many described monthly or quarterly check-ins where they assessed their progress and adjusted their strategy if they were falling behind. Several also described breaking large long-term goals into smaller milestone goals, making the enormous long-term goal feel achievable through a series of smaller achievable steps. This level of goal specificity is something anyone can implement immediately regardless of their current financial situation. Set specific numbers with specific deadlines. Break them into smaller milestones. Review your progress regularly. The fifth trait that showed up across almost every single one of these 100 millionaires was their deliberate effort to surround themselves with people who were further ahead financially than they were, and to actively learn from them. This was not passive networking at random events. This was intentional, strategic relationship building with people who had knowledge, experience, and connections that could accelerate their own journey. Many described specific mentors who played pivotal roles in their success. There's a well-known concept that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and this showed up consistently in the research. The millionaires studied had deliberately curated their social and professional circles to include people with ambitious goals, strong financial habits, and valuable knowledge to share. Several specifically mentioned joining mastermind groups, industry associations, investment clubs, or business communities specifically to be around people who were achieving the kind of success they wanted for themselves. This trait is completely actionable regardless of where you currently are financially. Seek out people who are ahead of you in areas you want to grow. Join communities related to your financial or business goals. Find mentors, even if it is simply following and learning from people online who have achieved what you want to achieve. Surround yourself intentionally with ambition and knowledge, not by accident, but by deliberate choice. The sixth trait was perhaps the most psychologically significant. The majority of the millionaires studied had experienced significant failures along their journey. Failed businesses, bad investments, lost jobs, financial setbacks that would have been completely devastating to most people. But the way they processed and responded to these failures was fundamentally different from how most people respond. Where the average person experiences a major financial failure and internalizes it as evidence that they are simply not capable, these millionaires consistently described treating their failures as data points to learn from rather than verdicts on their identity or potential. Many described specific catastrophic failures, businesses that completely collapsed, investments that lost significant money, partnerships that fell apart leaving them with substantial debt. And in almost every single case, the response was the same. They analyzed what went wrong with genuine curiosity rather than shame. They extracted specific lessons, and they applied those lessons to their next attempt. This mental framework allowed these individuals to take risks that most people are too afraid to take because the fear of failure had been replaced with a framework that made failure survivable and even useful. This is perhaps the hardest trait to develop because it requires a fundamental shift in how you process setbacks. But it is also one of the most powerful. The next time something financial goes wrong in your life, practice asking what can I learn from this rather than what is wrong with me. This single shift in framing can be the difference between giving up after one setback and persisting until you eventually succeed. And here's the seventh and final trait, the one that surprised me the most because of just how consistently and powerfully it showed up. Every single one of the 100 millionaires studied started investing significantly earlier than the average person, and they never stopped, regardless of market conditions, life circumstances, or how much or little money they had available at any given time. This was not about timing the market perfectly or finding some secret investment strategy. It was about consistency over an extended period of time. Many started investing small amounts, sometimes embarrassingly small amounts by today's standards, in their early 20s or even before that. And critically, they continued investing consistently through market crashes, recessions, personal financial struggles, and uncertain times when most people pull their money out of fear. This consistent long-term investing behavior allowed compound interest to work its full magic over decades. Several specifically mentioned investing through major market downturns, continuing their regular contributions even when account values were dropping, understanding that market downturns are temporary while their investment time horizon was measured in decades, not months or years. The combination of starting early and never stopping, regardless of circumstances, created the foundation that all their other smart financial decisions built upon. Even those who eventually built successful businesses or significant career income consistently mentioned that their early and consistent investing habits provided the financial security that allowed them to take bigger risks in their careers and businesses. The lesson here is perhaps the simplest and most actionable of all 7 traits. Start investing today, regardless of how small the amount, and commit to never stopping, regardless of what the market does or how tempting it feels to pause during difficult periods. So there you have it, the 7 traits that showed up consistently across 100 self-made millionaires that I studied. They started before they felt ready. They treated financial knowledge as a skill to master. They lived below their means even after becoming wealthy. They set extremely specific goals with deadlines. They actively sought out mentors and networks. They treated failures as data rather than identity. And they started investing early and never stopped. Here is what I want you to notice about every single one of these traits. None of them require you to be born into wealth. None of them require exceptional intelligence or rare talent. None of them require lucky timing or special connections you do not already have access to. Every single one of these traits is a learnable behavior, a choice you can start making today regardless of your current financial situation. Pick one trait from this list, the one that resonates with you most or the one you feel you are missing most right now, and commit to building it into your life starting this week. Drop a comment below telling me which trait surprised you the most or which one you are going to focus on. I read every single comment and I would love to know. If this video added value to your life, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Sunny Aurum for a brand new video every single week. I will see you in the next one. Stay golden.